everyone, good afternoon. Today we will be talking to Eric Quint in reference to his book, which is Design Leadership Ignited. And we will be discussing this book. Now, this will be under the book club initiative done by ADI, the nationwide ADI as a group. But ADI Delhi NCR is initiating this discussion, and we are very, very lucky to have Eric to start with. Let me introduce Eric to all of you. Of course, we all know who's Eric Quint, but let me introduce him. So, Eric Quint, in his role as the first Chief Brand and Design Officer at 3M, Eric was at the helm to scale and brand and design across the global enterprise. He's bringing over 20 years of international executive design leadership experience and is a practitioner of design thinking as a mindset for collaboration and transformation across multiple levels of an organization to drive progress. Eric is a frequent keynote speaker and guest lecturer about design leadership, innovation, and brand experience. He has co authored a book for Stanford University Press titled as Design Leadership Ignited, describing how to embrace the complexities of design leadership to elevate design at scale. His achievements are referenced and featured in numerous international books and publications. So today's program, what are we going to do is we have come up with a few questions for Eric, and of course we will be discussing his book along with his journey. But we have people into our Zoom call also, so we will take some question and answers at the end of 25 minutes, and likewise we will work on with the program. So hello everyone and welcome Eric. Maybe Eric, you can start with introducing a little again, and then we can go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Samitra, for having me speaking about the book for the book club. It's always, I say, you can't talk enough about design leadership. So every moment I have to talk with designers and design managers about this topic is a pleasure. So I have...
Huh? So I request all of you to please mute yourselves. Anshu, will you please take care of that?
Okay, so yeah, no problem. So I have worked indeed, like you said in my intro, at Philips in the design department for many, many years, and worked with a couple of colleagues to grow that team. I was particularly responsible in the management team of Philips Design for the consulting business that we did, as well as design management as a practice. We were able to grow the team in the last couple of years that I was at Philips, together with the management team, from I think 200 people to 500 people. And yeah, if you grow a team like that, you learn a lot about what are the characteristics of scaling and the impact on design managers of scaling design in a big corporation. Of course, the book is very much about that process and some insights and considerations about what it is to scale design in an enterprise. But many of the lessons you can use in your daily practice as well as a design manager, whether you are in a consultant or a consultancy or in a smaller business or even in a startup. The challenges are kind of a general complexities that you have to manage, which are described in the book. After Philips, I started to join 3M, and 3M is a well-known innovation technology company. They were very interested in say, establishing a design competency and practice. And they have asked me to join the team, and I worked there for 8 years, growing the team with the management team in design from when I started roughly 20 people to when I left 200 people. And also was responsible for brands, the global 3M brand, as well as design. Obviously, those two have a lot in common. I was giving a lot of keynotes in the last couple of years, and in many cases I got the question, where is your book? Have you written a book? And I never had the time, because if you are an executive in a large organization, there is no time hardly to write a book. And so but I was very interested, because I thought, when I started as a young designer, design management and chief design officers were not existing at that moment in time. Design management was starting, and I thought, at the end of my career, how neat it is to capture all of the lessons learned in a book and help, say, younger, new generation of designers to pick up faster and better the role of leadership. And so that's how the book came about.
I think that's a very, very good insight. So when I'm going to be asking you questions, these are going to be from three perspectives. One is going to be from the student perspective, one is going to be from the practitioner's perspective, and one from the academic perspective. Now, since this is about a book and you have written the book along with a couple of academicians, then would you like to bring a little bit light on that as to how did you all team up and how has the process been, along with the interviews that you've taken with the 500 Fortune 500 organizations, and what has been that experience and how long has this process been?
Yeah, so I think it was in 2000, maybe 18 or 19, that I got the question of when are you going to write a book several times. But then Gerda Gemser and Julia Calabretta were doing a research on design leadership. And as one of the design leaders, they interviewed me as well. And so when they did the interview, they sent me the abstract of the interview, and I was reading it, and I went back to them and said, "Hey, we are only scratching the surface here, because there's so much more things to talk that we have, say, discussed in 1 hour based on your research questions." And so they started to get interested, as well as myself. And I said, "Yeah, I'm available for more if you want." And so we talked several hours in the end. And then during those sessions, we came up with the idea, maybe we can write a book together, because their original intent of the research was to write a white paper for an academic journal. But then, based on all of that discussion, they switched their minds, and we all three came together to decide to write a book. And then we, based on the idea of the book, mainly about how to master the complexities of design leadership in order to elevate design in a big enterprise, we approached different publishers. And I must say, Stanford University Press was immediately interested. And it is maybe nice to say that it is their business books department that decided to publish this book. So it is among business books, which is interesting, because we don't want to only inspire designers and design leaders, but also business people to better understand what design leadership is and what it is in the context of a big enterprise. So that's how the book came about. The research was done over a period of maybe 1.5 year, maybe 2 years, because it was not only the interviews, it was also desk research. We did a lot, particularly Gerda and Julia did all the research on the websites, on the webs, internet, on social media, but also publications. On leadership that we have taken into account. But foremost, the research is on 59 design executives working across all of the globe in all kinds of industries that are asked questions about how are they engaging on design leadership at scale. That was the main research question. And so all that research has resulted in over 170 say quotes in the book that we use to to enrich the whole story, but also to give more insights from different perspectives. One of the things that I wanted to avoid, if writing a book, it's writing a book about yourself. So this is more about the journey that I have done, and then of course in a wider context of what other design leaders have learned as well.
Great, great. So I think you really answered the question well enough, because this is specifically how does one start, how does one collaborate, and how does one come up with a effective product, which is your book right now. It is definitely answering that. So I'm going to go one by one. We have chapter one, wherein you have discussed about design excellence model, which is more like a building block of leadership into design leadership. So can you explain that a little bit more as to how do you really collaborate between value of design plus the evolution, and how do you really convert it to a business ROI? What has this insight exactly been?
Yeah. So first of all, on the book, we have approached the book and the process of the book as a design process, as you can imagine. So we have done and gathered our research. We have written a prototype, a draft. We have, of course, done academic reviews with the book, and then have hopefully made the book better. And and in the end, there is the book. So it was a true collaboration across different disciplines, because maybe an interesting note to say, one of the interests of Stanford was the combination of a practitioner with two academics to write a book, because that's where the value is. The research, combining the research side with all the experience of doing design leadership at scale is what is the value. Well, when I left 3M, I always mentioned to the company that when I started, I asked them and I said, "Well, you want to establish design as a function in your company, but you have to realize this is a marathon. This is not a sprint. So if you are interested to hire me for 1 or 2 years or 3 years, then probably I'm not interested, because I know from experience that if you want to make impact in the company, you have to have a longer 5 to 10 years say view in all of that." And they give me that commitment that it is a longer term investment. The other thing I mentioned is, to establish a design excellence team worldwide for the company as a platform, because that was the question to me. The question was very simple: can you establish design as a global function to advance innovation and enhance brand experience as a global platform? And so that's one sentence, but it can keep you busy for many, many years. Yes. In the context of a company that was 100,000 people, had over 25 businesses, and was active in 70 countries. You have a complexity that is enormous. I mentioned to the company that if I would take, and I committed for 5 years, that probably I can only do and build a foundation. And the foundation then is something that the company can make use of to further, sophisticate that function of design going forward to the needs and the realities of their business. And so that is how we came to the model, because the model in growing a mature design excellence team, we have identified 3 stages, of which one is the establishing the foundation that I just talked about. And that one is supported by setting a clear design direction, as well as a design organization that you have to form and shape. And that is one of the key roles of a chief design officer, in my opinion. My first role was designing the function of design for the company. It is a design organization role that you have. And maybe that's good to mention. That is my background. I'm a mechanical engineer and have done industrial engineering. And after that, I did the Academy of Art, the product design course. So I have a combination of the two left-right brain experience.
Yes, that's what a design manager also does.
Yeah. And so after the establishing, you then can start to empower your design team. But then it is very important that your design taxonomy is clearly defined, as well as your design resources are going to grow in line with the strategies of the company, of course, and the needs. And then the end stage is where you scale design and where you strive for design excellence. And that is where you elevate design to design excellence. And the more you go through the model, you will have more maturity will be established in your design function, and that will of course have more impact to the company as well, because the more design say maturity you have, the more you have opportunities to create value. So so in my previous role, I was busy to invest into all three, of course, but I focused mainly on the design foundation. And one of the things I mentioned to the company when I left, because when I left, they gave me a lot of credit for the progress that we have made with the team on design for the company. And I said, wait, you should not do that at this moment in time. Let's wait for 5 years, and then we can test how strong the foundation was and how good my job was. So I'm very much looking forward in 5 years from now to see what the design function at 3M is, to see whether I did a good job or not.
I'm sure it's going to be great.
Well, we will see.
But you just summed up the whole book right now when you were discussing until you came up to design taxonomy, and you were moving towards design excellence as setting up as. But one thing that I think design scaling is something that you was talking about.
Yeah, scaling. We have recognized two elements in scaling. One is the qualitative and the quantitative scaling. And you have to have an eye for both, because it is not only that you have enough designers, but you need to have the right designers at the right place to do the right job. And if you have a global organization, then you have to start to think about the mix of designers. And well, designers, I don't think they do themselves a favor by having all of these variations of creatives, because I remember when I was at Philips, we had over 30 design competences in the team, from graphic design, UX, interaction design, design research, interior design. I can go on and on and on. But particularly lately, when the concept of customer experience and user experience comes in, for me, it's all design. And I think there's too much of an eagerness going on amongst the different disciplines within design, trying to be the best and to be the most important. But in the end, none of these designers can solve any issue on their own. They always have to collaborate. And so I think by distincting all of these different roles and competences, it is sometimes confusing to the business to understand what design is all about. And so that's where the design taxonomy comes in, where you, like HR and IT and marketing, you describe what that function is going to do. You are describing also what the different roles are in the design taxonomy, how to engage with design and other functions is also in there. And that is all captured in the end. And the taxonomy is focusing more on the HR elements, where you also are clear about career perspectives that you describe for your designers. But to start with scaling in a company, the first thing you need to do is write about a clear governance. You need to make sure that the governance of design is clearly understood. And I have a nice story about that. That is that when I came into the team, I worked with the team together and say, okay, we need to think about a strategy and a longer term vision of how we want to build going forward, and kind of like a beacon for the team and for the company as well. Because I was approached by business leaders about all kinds of questions that they requested me to support them on, but the team was totally not ready. We didn't have a team at that moment in time, or hardly a team. So also to manage expectations, it's very good to have a kind of a roadmap and a governance with a vision and mission that is clearly stating, okay, guys, for the coming 5 years, this is what we are going to work on, and make sure that everybody understands it. And I will keep you up to date about the progress that we make, but also I will knock on your door when I feel there is some issues that we have to manage or some challenges, so that we can start to drive the progress of design. And the governance of design is capturing a few things. It is describing how design is sponsored financially, so how the investments are managed. Is it a central budget or not? Is it by separate BGs? Is it a corporate investment? And they all have their pros and cons. It is too much detail to go in now in all the pros and cons, but in the book you can find all the details.
Yeah.
It is also who is managing design. When I came on board in 3M, many designers were reporting into, I don't know, engineers all over the place, marketeers, laboratories. And I looked to their objectives, and it was awful because in many cases, there were all kinds of sales objectives in there, and designers have totally not any influence on sales. And so I immediately started to object and started to cut that all out and say, hey, let's have some creative objectives in there, and let's make sure that we put some objectives in there for learning and growth for the designers as well. And so, so the reporting lines are extremely important. And my clear statement was: design reports into design, nobody else. And so that's what we started to do. I had a chief design officer role, and so I started first a process of getting all designers reporting into design. Not all in me, indirectly, yes, but into the design managers that were reporting into me. And so we created clear objectives every year for the designers that were linked to business objectives. Yes, because you want to make sure that there's a connection going on, of course, but also to the function of design, because we wanted to grow the function of design. And I want those designers not only to focus on business, but also to focus on the function of design and how to grow the competence of design. And you need all the designers on board to do that. So the reporting lines was one of the things. Then you describe the location of the designers. Are they scattered all over the organization, or are they in studios together? Well, there's a lot of pros to put people with studios together. You know all that example where
a lot of inspiration.
Yeah, because there's for inspiration, but also for sitting together with peers. Designers are vulnerable anyhow. The act of creativity is a vulnerable act, and so that means that we all know the situation where a designer is exploring and then has 4, 5, 6 ideas, and then 20 engineers look over your shoulder and tell you that they have all tried it before. And so that's not how you drive innovation in an effective way. And so to create a kind of an enabling environment for designers where creativity can go, and exploration and failing and learning can go around is extremely important. So I took the decision. In my situation, the best was to have a big central design studio on corporate, which was around 150 people when I left, and then have design studios in different locations there where there was a need for design support. And those satellites can be between 5 and say 10, 20 people. You never should go lower than 5 because you need to have some critical mass in order to create impact. Well, the other thing that you describe in your governance is the rules of engagement, which is important. How do I engage with the other? Because it's all about collaboration. The theme that I started in the company in the first week I was talking about collaborative creativity. That was the only thing I was interested in. None of any function nowadays is in the position to solve the challenges that we have in the world as we speak. So it's not even one company is in the position to do that. So you need to work together across companies, with academia, with policymakers to make sure that you can tap into the challenges we have on health, on mobility, on education. I can go on and on.
So I have, sorry to interrupt you here. I have this question, which is a little out of the book, but this is a question since you're discussing, I have this question for you. So when you were doing this collation between designers, policymakers, non-designers or design allies, how challenging was it? And also just said that you had a designer reporting into a designer. So not all designers could possibly go and take a leadership role. Probably there would have been an identification, a screening to get over there. Right. And then once that design leadership role also needs to understand the business strategy part. So how did you ensure these two factors where collation happened properly and the design leadership, which was exactly only a designer? How did that work?
Yeah. Engaging with different stakeholders, particularly in the
Mm-hmm.
business, but also academia and policymakers and communities,
Mm-hmm.
is what you need to do is be a proud designer. And we have a few things in common as designers that are unique. It is our imagination, the fact that we can storytell and empathy that will connect people in a very easy way. Coming up with great creative ideas is immediately inspiring people to connect and to start to think along with you. So one of the things I have learned is for sure never start to imitate the behavior of a business person in trying to connect to a business person because you could completely lose your edge as a creative. And so, how often have I seen design managers starting to wear the same fashion, started to talk the same way, and behave like business people? And at that moment in time, they didn't even say realize they completely lost their cutting edge of being a designer. So my advice is to everybody: be a proud designer, and yes, realize that you are different, and accept that you are different. We are living in a time where diversity and inclusion is so important. So I always mentioned in the book also that growing a design function in a large organization is an inclusion challenge across all levels. And so it's because we are different thinkers, and therefore, if you want to have diversity in thought, well, hire some designers, but then you need to also make sure that you enable them and give them space. I always say oxygen, create oxygen for the designers so that they can flourish. But so that collaborative creativity is important, and I think when we get trainees every summer holiday in the US is that 15 people, they started 6 weeks experience. And one of the things that they never realized so much is that they were dropped into design teams and project teams, and then they learned to collaborate. And so I think in education nowadays, maybe there's not enough of emphasis and maybe not a lot of time because there's a lot of pressure on our education systems as well. But to do cross-functional projects with students from complete different colleges and start to mimic a kind of a business environment where the greatness of one designer doesn't exist anymore. It's not appropriate anymore.
Yeah, I think that itself is the gist that one designer anyway is not going to work. It has to be collaboration, and if it doesn't work as an entity, only then it's going to exist. That has to be collaboration. So should I move ahead? Now, this question again relates to the next part, as in when there's growth in design teams, and if it is attached to a business function in totality, which is the case. Of course, when you took care of Philips or 3M, or also these days there are these huge designer teams in IT companies and BFS and places like that. So this growth is a challenge, yes, to the manager who is the design manager, who's a designer, as well as it is the challenge to the business strategy person. So what would be your suggestion? You have been mentioning this throughout the book about the taking care of dualities that exist in both these fields, right? So
Yeah,
what
the
would be
one.
your
Yeah, go ahead.
yeah, what would be your suggestion in this regard?
Yeah, well, the dualities we came across, like any leader in a business, there's a lot of dualities to manage. You have to find a balancing. It's an act of balance to make sure that you make sure your investment in the long term and the short term is the right way. And what is the right way? You don't know. You have to customize it for your particular situation. But also, are you a leader that is maybe more directive, or are you more a leader that is, say,
Empathetic.
collaborative?
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I remember that I'm a jazz player, and so when I came into the company, one of the board directors asked me in an interview internally for the company, tell me a bit about your jazz and jazz playing and how does that relate to your design. And I said, well, there is a difference. there's different ways of making music. One of the ways is you pick a sheet of music and you play with the right interpretation the what is on paper in the best way. Um, I said that's not my way. My way is more the jazz way. That is, I give my team the key of the music and the rhythm, and then they have to sort it out, and I create the enablers. There's another thing that I like very much from taking away from music. That is the the the
You were talking about the ideas are nothing if they are probably not implemented.
yeah. So the the idea is only valuable if it is realized.
Right,
And
right.
so if it is not realized, you can have 100,000 ideas. Innovation is about selecting the best idea and then managing it through the system. That's what the challenge is about. And of course, you need to have great ideas, but I expect great designers having great ideas anyhow. So that's an implicit almost. So
I
yeah,
mean,
so we
this is,
learn.
I'd really like to repeat the thing of improv which happens on stage, and you do it. This is the real time design that is needed, rather than someone just sitting on an idea and keeping working on it till forever. So
No,
that
no,
is where the application of design thinking into business thinking is. That's exactly where is a thin line of separation in between both of them.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah. So I think it's not sitting on your idea; it's sharing your ideas and making it better together. And then hopefully it can go into implementation and can create value in the end. I have seen a lot of great ideas, by the way, bleeding to death because nobody was running with it, or there was not a good case for it. So in the interviews, we learned a lot about the dualities, where as a design leader, you also have to think about the future and have to challenge the status quo in the company.
Mm.
But you can't challenge it too much. You also have to adhere to systems and processes that you have as well in the company. And so that is another duality that you have to manage. Another one, very recent one, is working from home, working in the office. There is a duality here. Okay, what is good and how are we going to manage it? And yes, we have the technologies to work from home, but is that always the best if you have to create the most exciting customer experiences? In my opinion, the best customer experiences are curated together on a working in the studio, working together with many different people from marketing, design, business as well, and strategy. So we came up, I think, in altogether with 15 dualities that we have learned through all the different phases of the process that we write something about. Talking about taxonomy, for instance, when I came into 3M, there was an existing taxonomy, very meager, and so I started to develop with the team, also based on benchmark, a strong taxonomy document for the whole design team globally, and that one was not per se fitting the rules and processes of HR. And so, but you want to adhere to the processes as well, because there are salaries are linked to it, and careers are linked to it. And why wouldn't career in IT be different from marketing or design? And so you have to have a common sense on the alignment, but also you have to have almost fearless leadership to decide that there are things somewhat different in the design function. So the lessons that we have learned is that along the way to design excellence, a design leader is challenged on those dualities, and the ones that are able to master this and balancing those dualities in an effective way, they can probably be very successful in elevating design at scale.
So one will have to build that skill in oneself, of course, with reading, with practice, with writing, right? So what could be the specific skills that one will have to look into if that person is wanting to be a design leader throughout his or her own journey of design or design allied?
Well, as a design leader, of course, the essence is that you understand business, but that you understand design in business. We cannot approach business from our the holy grail of design and then think that that is the truth. So it is a design manager has two ways to manage. One is to understand the business and the business challenges and translate that in the appropriate design activities with your design team, initiate those activities, run those activities in an effective way, and then bring back the results
Measurable format.
in a format to the business back that they understand. So how often are the ways we bring it back are very much about design details, while the businesses are not interested into that. So you have to find a common understanding and a language to do both. So you have the role to as a design manager. I'm not talking as a chief design officer here, but as a design manager to be the glue between the business and the design team, and make sure that you run the appropriate programs successfully. As a chief design officer, you have a somewhat different role because you have the role of designing the design function, like I mentioned already before, work on the org design, but also make sure that your design leadership is in place and hire the right design leaders for your team. You have to make sure that you educate continuously about design in the company. So you do a lot of internal keynote speaking engagements, but also workshops and also open houses and engagements where you share the results of the team so that people can better understand. And actually, if you are at a journey to grow and scale design in a larger company, whether that is an IT company or a technology company or a bank service company, it's in fact a new venture. Yeah, so you have to have the mindset of a startup manager, because to be very black and white, nobody understands what design is about when you start. There are hardly any designers. Nobody wants to work with you because they cost a lot of money. And so why would I work with design? And so you need to start to create a kind of understanding and demand. And in the book, I talk about a three-step approach for creating design demand, which is very effective because it's a bit the chicken egg. It's like a new venture. It's if you don't have anything to show, however can investors put money into it? So you need to be a bit that rebel to go around. And first, what you need to do is to create awareness about what design is about. So I in the research, we heard still executive leaders being very, challenged and disappointed about the progress they were making in their companies. And my question always was to them, have you explained well enough to the company what design is about? It all starts with that, create awareness. So you need to use your empathy and storytelling to connect to the different functions and tell what design is about. At the same time, you do some smaller projects, so you go with the flow, jump on the low-hanging fruit so that you can show results. And the best is always if not you are explaining what design is about, but when business leaders in their business management team are going to share the amazing result that design has supported them on. Then they appreciate what design is about. And in the end, you want ambassadors for design where people invest into design. And so that is a delicate process of demand generation that, in my case, has resulted the growth from the 20 to 200 people, because we were able to prove our value very clearly.
Yeah, and I was just reading in one of the HPRs that if we have to be proven design value to anyone else other than the designer, it has to be in a formulaic manner. So did you really come up with some formulaic structure or something, or although dualities is
Yes.
something that you came up with, but did you come up with something?
Well, first of all, I defined the value spaces because when I came on board, that was as part of the governance. Most people thought, okay, let's get those creative people in, and then they can come up with crazy ideas. And then in the R&D department, we can look what makes sense and what not, and then we can run with it or not. So they were used actually as a kind of as a pencil for getting ideas, great ideas on paper, Illustrator. So that's not what it's designed about. That's not where you create any value. So I started to create the value, and there's another mistake, I think, misconception is that design is mainly, say, involved in consumer brands, not in B2B, which is totally not true, because B2B, you have more stakeholders to deal with, the complexity goes up, so you need more creativity and design involved in order to get the best value propositions identified. So that was the first, say, educational challenge I had, because 3M was 85% B2B, and they started themselves with the 20 people in B2C. And then I came on board and started to talk about healthcare and why you need design in healthcare, and which is obvious to me. But then, so there are 4 or 5 value spaces. One is, of course, design for innovation. It's where you use idea generation and concepts for new value, working together mainly with R&D and the technologists in the company. And you have design for brand, where you build brand experiences designed across all stakeholder touch points, which can be physical, digital, they can be, in shops or not. So you have to start to realize that probably the majority of the work you do in a design team is supporting the brand and brand experiences and customer experience. Then you have design for marketing, because I always say if you have a great idea, you have identified value, you need to generate that value and develop that value, but you have to bring that value to the marketplace as well with great storytelling and marketing. So designers can help on that storytelling in marketing communications to commercialize that value. So we normally not involved, because the company thinks it's an act of marketing to do that. And then they work with outside agencies to get the creation of that communication going. And then all of that is not on brand. So it's not working. It's creating fragmentation in the marketplace. Then design for efficiency. You can, as designers, work even with in the supply chain to do things more efficient, and maybe start to think and create ideation about waste and how to reuse the waste, so to become more environmental friendly. So great opportunities for design to them. Stakeholder engagement, where you co-create and collaborate. I mentioned that already, across different stakeholders. And then strategy. For me, partners in crime are marketing, R&D, and strategy to work together with design. And so, you work with strategy, and maybe you can start to think about visions of the future to explore probable futures for the company, to bring them to the senior management for them to evaluate where the options are. And so, the ones that take the responsibility about the future will own the future. So that is important as well. So when I started to talk about those value spaces, it started to become a bit more clear. And people asked me then, okay, where can we start to work together? But I remember the first question when I was in the first week in the company, where somebody knocked on my door and said, hey, interesting, you are the new design guy in the company. Tell me, how do you measure your success, and what are your KPIs? And I'm very sensitive for that question, because it puts you as a design leader in a justification mode. And I had, I think, a great question and reaction to that. I said to the person who asked me, well, you know what? I use the same KPIs and success factors that you do. Tell me, how do you measure your success in marketing, R&D? And then I got the most wild stories of how they measure the success in marketing and finance and IT and so on all over the place. And so I remember with the CEO, I had a discussion about it. I said, hey, I'm questioned all the time about the value of design, but I'm not going to answer on it anymore. You know, you have hired me as CEO to do the job here, so I'm not going to justify my existence here. And so I was very clear on that one, because I rather show, don't tell, and show the progress of design, and then show the results of design with numbers. Yes, we are able to do that. But the upfront question is very much a justification question. And I remember that in the end, our organization design and our taxonomy was far more sophisticated than many other functions in the company in the end. So I think we were very well established and sophisticated. So that value question is a question that is linked obviously to investment, but yeah, you need to show, don't tell. That is, I think, a great approach.
Right. So I think we're approaching towards the end of the book club discussion. So let me showcase, this is the book that Eric has written along with his authors. And just one little design question for the book, Eric. What about the cover design? Do you want to talk about that? Because I think you talked about it on LinkedIn somewhere and it was an interesting talk. I would like to know.
Well, the book design is always a challenge to come up with a good book design, because it's a design project. It has to be differentiating on the bookshelf. It has to be reflect the content of the book. And for us, we talk about design leadership ignited. This is about the next level of design management into big corporations. And we saw this as a kind of an explosion of color, which color is very much linked to the act of design. And so we thought, okay, this is a kind of an ignition of design. Let it be the ignition of design leadership at scale for many, many people to inspire them and to give them a lot of insights.
That's wonderful. I would like to open the floor for people if they have any questions for Eric here.
Feel free to ask any challenging questions.
Or any questions for that matter. I guess they will connect to you later, since I don't see them asking questions right now, but they will connect to you. And
well, maybe good to mention that if people have no questions, that they can order the book, and there's a special order for Adi, the book club, that we can give a discount of 20%. So later I will send you the link that you can share with your members for them to get an ebook or a hard copy of it. Ashish, you have a question?
Yeah, I just had one question. I work with Asian Paints, and I'm a part of the business team, and I have designs team working with me. And I'm really keen that because I think design is going to be the face that will change a lot of things, actually, in many ways. So my question actually is that we have many frontiers to design in the organization, and it varies from product design, which includes aesthetics and making it innovative, to store design for modern format stores, to user interface design, etc. So sometimes these elements don't come together, despite a centralized design team, etc. And so in those kind of scenarios, how should a business person be able to handle this?
Well, it depends on how you have organized the design function and the creativity in your company or in your project teams. So coming together, I don't know what you mean with coming together. Is that sitting together, or they are not able to collaborate, or it's not easy to understand what they do, or?
No, so finally, one would want to give a unified face or a language of communication to the consumer. And that's where it can get very different.
To who do you want to give a common face? Sorry, I missed that one.
To the consumer. To the
yeah, sure.
Customer. So.
Yeah, no. So, but that's one of the challenges that you have. I see. Well, one of the first questions I asked at the CEO when I got in the job, I asked him, and I knew on forehand he didn't know the answer. I asked him, how much do you invest at this moment in time in design? And he didn't know the answer. And I mentioned the following. I said, well, the design investment is probably the largest investment that CEOs don't know about. And so what I'm saying here is that there's a lot of different functions all across the company work with outside agencies on communications, on in-store experience, on app design, on internet design, you name it, products even. But if there is not a chief design officer or a design coordinator or a brand coordinator that is tying all of that together, you get nowhere. And how do you tie all of that together? Well, it all comes down to the design brief. And so one of the things that I have started in the company is we don't start any project without a design brief. Because design is involved in helping to create a design brief, because it is based on the values of the brand, and this cannot be done by an engineer. I think you have to realize that if customer experience and brand is a huge topic, and that topic doesn't belong, like innovation is a huge topic in a company, and you can't run this from within one function. This is how you all collaborate together across all of the functions based on shared values and shared strategies to make sure that that customer experience is consistent, exciting, and in line with the position of the company. And so you have to put structure and rigor and process around this, otherwise you never will get this going. That is one of the reasons that I started to say design needs to report into design. And also all outsourcing of design needs to be run through design. I hope this helped a bit, Ashish.
Yeah, I did pick a few things, of course. Thank you.
Thank you for your question, Ashish. I think we will have to end the question answer session also because we're running out of time. Thanks a lot, Eric, for being with us into this first few programs of ADI Book Club. And for all of us joining in, thank you very much. We will be sharing more books, and I think we're lucky enough that Eric is also giving us a discount on the book. So whoever would like to receive the discount code may DM to us either on Insta or Facebook or LinkedIn, and we will send the code to you. It will not be published across, but if you send a DM to us and if you are a member of ADI, then you will receive the code. So thanks a lot, Eric, and
my pleasure.
We'll see you soon. Thank you.
Have a great day. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Bye.